Alright, Warcraft. Well, last night I made a video where I tried to make Devotion Aura. And we had a couple of problems I ran into when I was trying to make Devotion Aura. I guess we could take a look, but essentially I think one of the things was my concept of Aura that I had created would periodically check the level of the buff nearby and basically call this refresh expiration function on the nearby buffs so they would last forever. And we saw that that was failing, so it was kind of like reflashing the buff where it would cancel and reapply. I ended up figuring out that my recording was not running, which was kind of unfortunate, so I couldn't show what I was doing. But this function of existing buff that basically figures out it does a cast. The cast was failing, basically to cast like nothing was messed up, and then I fixed that so it sort of properly cast, and then if the cast fails you just get null, which is more like what I wanted. But anyway, we were getting this thing, and we were checking if it's null, and then like equals null was actually implemented badly. It's interesting how many random things I was fixing on my Jass code, because I'd recently changed stuff. So I finally got to the point where this would actually run, and then I was reminded that on Warsmash, something like calling BJ debug message, these sort of Blizzard Jass debug functions, would try to print text to the screen, and we couldn't see the text on the screen because it would only print one thing at a time, because in Warsmash I'd only made one text field instead of anybody who's familiar with sort of the old Frozen Throne universe that Warsmash is trying to simulate would know that if you call, display text to player a whole bunch of times, the way that people expect that to be is a bunch of messages scrolling upward that then sort of fade away. So I implemented the scrolling upward concept, and I had thought the video was recording, and it wasn't. So I missed some interesting development last night in terms of recording that, but basically what I figured out was that it pretty much worked. When I would click on the text, then it was blocking me from interacting with the game world, so then I had to fix that. But I got it all fixed, so that was pretty cool. So then I got to where Devotion Aura seemed to be pretty much working. And I guess we still have this updating buff level and calling refresh expiration, and we probably want to fix that. You could imagine there are reasons for that perhaps not to be, but let's just take a look. If I just run the system here, it could be fun to see the success case.
At your call.
Cool. So here's my paladin. If I click on Devotion Aura, you can see I get an armor bonus, and now it's saying called refresh expiration, so it starts spamming that on the screen for all the guys nearby. Maybe I'm exiting too soon, but if you see, we are not re-blinking the buff. Everybody just has the buff, and if he leaves the area, they will lose the buff after it times out, and then I'm sure if he comes back, they will regain the buff. Now those guys actually, I think they lost and regained the buff. There was an interesting flash there, but I think that's just kind of expected.
Yes, my lord. Let me
So anyway, yeah, I was able to make Devotion Aura. That seemed like that worked pretty well.
For honor. Do you see something? Let me face the peril. Wait till you see me in action. Let me face.
Curious about some other bugs I saw last night while I was looking at that. Is going on with the health bars, but probably doesn't matter. Anyway, so it seems like Devotion Aura works. That seems pretty cool.
What would you ask of me? It shall be done.
Now it is kind of interesting to think if you have something like
it shall be done.
Divine Shield. Should we be trying to bring these other abilities like Divine Shield and Holy Light? I guess I shut off Holy Light. So I used to have Holy Light programmed in the Java. I turned it off so that it could be replaced by the Jass.
Strike with great vengeance.
Oh, that's what it was. The health bars were disappearing, and I was concerned about it last night. It's because everybody turned invulnerable. Invulnerable units don't show the health bar, and Devotion Aura was doing invulnerable. Oh, that makes total sense. Oof. Yeah, it was the evening last night. Anyway, cool. So I think it'd be neat. We get all the paladin abilities in Jass, just kind of as an example over here. So suppose I wanted to do that, and maybe I want to make an ability like Divine Shield. You can see we already have it. But we have it as a basically like a status thing that is implemented in the Java. So my screen blinked out and came back. Now I wonder, is it still recording? I might try to sneak over and check on that. Yeah, I think we're still recording. Okay, good. Yeah, it was just as the game exited, there was some kind of visual glitch. Oh, sorry. Okay. So if I go to ability data, oh, this always wants to go to ability dark ritual when I try to type ability data. We can see that AHDS, Divine Shield, over here is hard-coded, and we could probably delete that. Basically, I'm just turning off these abilities in Java and making more things in replaceable Jass so that users can customize them in user space. So if we want to make an ability like this, basically go to ability Divine Shield and say, hey, how do we make this ability into something that exists in the Jass that somebody can use likewise? Should be pretty straightforward. Pretty much I make a scope for these, so I'm going to say, alright, let's have scope Divine Shield and scope. And then a struct that represents the ability itself. So then I usually call that one like ability Divine Shield, something like that. It extends one of the ability spell types. I think I made ability spell no target. It should be a no target spell, kind of straightforward. Then we might want to have a public static constant integer order ID, where basically we want to have the Divine Shield order ID as a member there, and a create method, right? It's just going to take the alias of the ability we're creating and return this type, the thing that we're inside of. Cool. So I think the create method should be pretty straightforward. Yeah. If we also want to have our members, so we could have like a boolean can deactivate. Sorry, spelled that wrong for a second, and an integer buff ID. Seems, again, fairly straightforward. So I guess for create, for now, I'm just going to return allocate directly, because I think all we need to do is pass the alias and the order ID to the super type. Forget if maybe we'll want to change that, but it doesn't even really look like it right now. So when I make these abilities, I have a populate data function, and populate data is pretty straightforward. Basically, it takes the, whenever we learn the ability or level it up, it calls populate data on us, and that allows us to basically do some kind of change to the stats. So I can say like this.can deactivate equals get game object field as boolean, and it sort of reads from the world editor, and I just tell it to get the editor data that's passed in, ability field data A plus integer to string of level, 0th index, so if you had like comma separated data in the world editor, it's like the 0th item. And then we do pretty much the same thing with buff ID, get game object buff ID, which is like a utility function I made. It just takes the editor data, the level, and then a 0th index buff. Cool, so that's pretty straightforward, and then we should be able to do, sort of method do effect, takes unit caster and ability target. For those who don't know, recently on Warsmash I created a new Jass handle type ability target, which is capable of storing both a location or a unit. So it's kind of fun in that regard, but it also maps into something I had going on in sort of the native Java universe. Hopefully make that a little bit more straightforward. So I think this should be pretty fun. This is sort of my Divine Shield ability, but we probably want to just like call to maybe even just a debug message and say you cast Divine Shield, exclamation, exclamation, and that's going to be like our first iteration, and we're probably going to want to fix that. I also want to give this scope an initializer. So this is one of the sort of VJAS-like ideas, but basically if I have a private function register that takes nothing and returns nothing, I can have sort of an automatic initializer inside this file, which allows us to then say call register ability struct type, something like that, where I think we should pretty much be able to say I want abilities human Divine Shield to actually use the ability Divine Shield struct that I was just writing above as the implementation for that. And then we should be able to go into like abilities human paladin, make ability Divine Shield as a code file, and at the moment I have a loop set up elsewhere that loops through all files in that abilities folder and loads them. So this file will probably load automatically into the game if we just go over here and hit Control F11 to run it. Maybe that's wishful thinking. I might have done something wrong as I was setting it up there, but we'll see. It's just kind of a fun example of what does the future of making ability implementations in Warsmash hopefully look like? Hopefully it's that simple. You know, you just make a scope, make a struct to define what is that ability like, and then you can start writing what it does. So yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Divine Shield. I'm able to level it up, and I cast it. Oh, and we crashed. Okay, so that's where I go back to my little debug thing over here. We got unable to convert nothing to Boolean. Oh yeah. Okay, so I've messed up. Do effect is supposed to return a Boolean at the moment. The concept of this API is that if you return true, it starts calling another function like do channeling or something for sort of a channeling ability. I don't really want to do that. I want to instantly end, so it just does its effect, and when we're done channeling. So that's kind of the reason to do the whole return false there. It should fix that. Cool. Alright, here's my Paladin. Let's try Divine Shield now. Awesome. See, it just says you cast Divine Shield. So one of the things I missed in my development the other night, and I guess another interesting thing to note, it automatically charges me the mana cost and other stuff like that. And the reason that that's all pretty much automatic is because populate data is getting called after a lower level populate method that's in sort of the abilities common. And so by inheriting from ability spell no target, I'm getting some Jass behaviors automatically that are automatically setting the spell to actually have the other types of things that you would want with like mana cost and cooldown and those sorts of things. Cool. So one of my interesting developments last night, mucking about with Warsmash, was I actually made it that we'll see text multiple times over here in Warsmash if we print multiple test messages. Which, it's something that's been it was in Frozen Throne for a very long time, and it was missing in Warsmash. So having finally added this to Warsmash, and you can see the one above sort of fades, where it'll have like multiple pieces of text and the text fades. I was pretty happy with myself last night, where I just kind of added that in, and it's like a stupid thing, that why has that not been there 3 years ago? But now it's there, so that seems pretty good. So that seemed nice. You can see pretty much things are good there, but actually the effect that we actually want to do in Divine Shield is to add a buff. So for anybody familiar with Frozen Throne usually was call unit add ability, and then you would say like, oh, I want to add to the caster, and I want to add like the devotion or a buff with some ability type, and maybe that would be like BHAD. But notably on Warcraft 3, buffs, when you add them, don't have their implementation of what to do. They're just kind of art data behind that raw code, and the actual implementation was the class of what to create. So this works for adding abilities, but for more general cases, I made a function with a reverse name. So instead of unit add ability, add unit ability, which basically actually does not take a integer type of the ability to create. It does not make those assumptions for you, and instead it adds an ability handle that you have to independently create. So one way to do that is create ability, which takes a raw code, and so you could do create ability BHAD, but then you would have to register BHAD for sort of the ability type mapping that units use, and I didn't choose to do that. So instead of that, I actually can just basically call a constructor something like buff devotion.create. So maybe I'll do that. But we have to go write that basically. So the solution to that will be struct buff devotion extends some kind of buff, and maybe we'll just make like a timed buff. That's a pretty good one. Generic timed buff. And you do something like that, where then you can call its create method, put some stuff in here, get the buff applied. Cool. So yeah, we'll see if I can do something like that. Basically make it turn unit vulnerable. That's probably next.